everybody. This is Lori, and I am the founder and CEO of Inclusivity, and we're a company devoted to kindness and justice. And right now we are working with artists from around the world on Artists Who Share, which is an auction raising money for both coronavirus recovery and recovery in the wake of George Floyd's murder. So we are talking to our artists about their lives and their art and their passions. And this is our podcast, Inclusivi-TALKS. Today, we are incredibly fortunate to be talking to Asterin Everett Gray. Sorry about that, Asterin. I forgot the last part of your name. Asterin Everett Gray, who is a high school student in Ohio who goes to an arts school and is going to be one of the artists in our auction, and is also working to put together a program for us that will air during the auction. So she is an amazing young woman, and we are so glad to have her here. Thank you, Asterin, for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So do you like to go by Asterin or do you go by Rin? Because I know I've seen it written.
Rin is just a nickname based off of that. It's just shorter for emails.
Okay, perfect. So can you tell us a little bit about how you realized you were a creator? Because I think you have a whole host of creative things that you do. How did you figure that out?
So actually, my mom both of my parents and my whole family really is very musically inclined through that aspect. My mom was an opera singer, and that's what she went to college for. My dad was a trumpet player. My paternal grandmother was a music teacher. Just that was always there. And when I was very young, we always had very long car rides, and what would always end up happening, if you talk to my mother, she'd tell you that I would just end up, kind of singing random songs that didn't really make much sense because I was like 3 or 4, but songwriting definitely developed from there, and it was just something that always stuck with me. And eventually that turned into a whole abundance of different outputs and different art forms that I still go through today.
So are you still writing music?
Yes, I still write a lot of music. I write a lot of short film scripts. I actually manage the short film department of my high school's film club, and I will be interning with them next year, so I'm very excited for that.
That's very exciting. So where do you go to high school?
Jackson High School.
Okay.
In Massillon, Ohio.
And you have a specialized program in the arts?
Yes. So my high school has 2 different academies within our high school. So there is JAGS, which is Jackson Academy for Global Studies, which is basically what it sounds like. They focus a lot with the UN's 21 goals and that kind of stuff. And then there is Jackson School for the Arts, or JSA, and I'm a part of JSA. And freshman year, they make you try everything.
Right.
Be it you have to take a visual arts course, you have to take Intro to Theater. The only thing that's optional is a semester of dance. But we have classes offered to us that the rest of the high school does not have offered to them. You cannot take theater courses if you're not in JSA. You cannot take dance as part of your school day if you're not in JSA. And then there's like specific arts classes, and then there's English classes directed, like you don't have English with other kids, you just have it with JSA students. Okay. And so it's really targeted towards the way that art students think and the way that they learn and grasp content, and the projects are based in a way that allows you to use your creative side and really interpret that as your own.
So what right now, if you had to say what your creative outlets are, what would you say they are right now?
As of right
now, have more than one.
Okay. Lately I have gotten into graphic art. I actually just started that about a month and a half ago, and I'm putting up 5 pieces in the auction that are digital art, but I had never done that prior to the coronavirus outbreak. It never would have crossed my mind. I've also been doing a lot of social media graphics work. I have all of these seminars through International Children's Month, and anytime that I plan something new, I always make the graphic for it to go up as well. And that's also just how I remember what dates are.
Very good idea.
Then I've also been creating some music through, what's it called? Soundtrap.
Okay.
To go in the background of some videos that I'm creating of art that have powerful messages and slogans for She's My Daughter, which is another organization that I work with. So that's all original music, original artwork. So there's a lot going on there too.
So are you entering any of your videos in the weekend of programming that goes with Artists Who Share?
So I am looking at some of the short films that my department has created. So my freshman year was the first full-length year of film club being a thing at my school. And I was the only one that ended up successfully creating a film. So she just kind of was like, okay, you're going to teach people how to do that. And so I was like, oh, okay. And it's kind of developed from there, but I have not gotten to make any of my other films. I have just been teaching people how to do that and kind of micromanaging all of that, which is a very difficult process.
Yes, I can imagine. So are you, so you mentioned the International Children's Month. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So this year marks the 8th year of International Children's Month, which was founded by Heidi Little, who's an amazing musician, a very talented person in general. She kind of manages this whole month of things that each year has a different theme. This year's theme is love, care, and respect to all children of the earth. And the way that she thinks everyone is a child of the earth, but it focuses specifically on young people. And so there are so many things that we're doing this month, and everybody kind of gets to come up with their own thing that speaks to them, and they just kind of run with it. Like she connected me with you for this project. I'm also working on a racism equality toolkit project. I'm working with No Judgment, Just Love. We were working on, I have, I think 5 or 6 seminars this month. I had my first one last week. Just kind of spreading awareness and finding things to talk about and having those discussions. And now this program, and now we also have another concert that I'm going to be working on planning. So there's just so much going on.
So I think that International Children's Month might sort of also be a part of the programming that we're having for Artists Who Share. Is that accurate?
Yes, we're currently in the works of connecting on that and becoming a sponsor for that event as a whole, and possibly getting Heidi to perform, as well as some other of her friends that are very up and coming and throughout the entirety of the world.
That would be fantastic. And we love the idea of supporting International Children's Month. So what a great collaboration. And nice for you since you're kind of working with both of us. That's just kind of a great thing if it could count sort of for both those passions. Now you mentioned No Judgment, Just Love.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So that program is ran by Sharon, and Sharon is very dedicated. She has this idea, and she's lately, in light of recent events, she's had a lot of people feel very comfortable going to her and talking about things that confuse them or ask questions that are very difficult to talk about. And it's just kind of the idea that no matter what has happened, you should be able to talk freely about things, even if you don't word things exactly correctly. And I think that that's really important, especially through the LGBT community, that people are trying to educate themselves, and people tend to get frustrated because, they're trying to learn, but at the same time, there might be just that one little phrasing thing that, gets under your skin, and just kind of working with people in order to understand that really you do have to work together and be patient and teach one another in order to overcome boundaries and stuff like that.
So are you actively involved in the LGBTQ community?
I am. I am a member of our school's LGBT Plus Alliance, working on a lot of different stuff there to try to get the school more involved with those kinds of things, as well as I identify as non-binary and use they, them pronouns. So there's a lot to be said there, as well as helping other people throughout the community feel more connected with themselves and helping to understand what they're going through.
So which pronouns do you use specifically?
They, them.
Okay, all right. And I think that this is a good moment to just talk about that for those of us that were raised, with the very strict
binary thinking.
Well, very binary thinking, but also it's more, for me, it was more the grammar thinking. I was actually raised in a home where I like gay and lesbian and LGBTQ issues were fine and discussed, but I think they and them has been hard. And I realized, and this is important, I think, in every conversation when you're talking with someone who's different from you, I realize it does not matter at all if they is doesn't sound right to me. I need to get over it. Like that is
I mean, you can use they are.
Yours.
I mean, if you inserted in any,
you're comfortable with that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of people, I mean, if you technically, it is proper to say they are, and so a lot of people, it's also kind of social media trend for people who do think that it is not grammatically proper. Just use they as if it were plural, and that is the proper way to do it. And it works in every scenario. I mean, if you think through it. I mean, they is, I don't think I've heard that before, to be honest.
Okay. So I assumed that it was that it would be they is because it's one, you're still one person. You're not binary, but you're still only one being.
Right.
So that's
I just don't think that it changes the grammatical rules because they is
doesn't sound
they
right.
are is the phrasing. They is the word that is operationally defined as being multiple.
Okay,
so
that's actually helpful.
Does that make sense?
Thank you. You taught me something. It will make it easier for me to speak, although I've been working really hard to get used to saying they is. But if I can use they are, it's probably easier for me to do
right.
that. So.
I'm actually doing an entire seminar talking about LGBT terms and language and doing a presentation on kind of going through all of that kind of stuff.
That's fantastic. So who are you doing your presentation for? What's the seminar's audience?
So I am actually broadcasting through the We the World Zoom platform, which means that it goes straight onto the We the World Facebook page, and then it will later be saved and uploaded to YouTube and all of that kind of stuff.
That's terrific. So if you had to, you have so many things that you're doing. So I think you told me that you're working for more than one nonprofit right now.
Yeah.
Is that accurate? Okay. So if you had to name, and this is a hard question, but if you had to name one thing that was your biggest passion right this minute, what would you say it is?
Changing the world.
Oh, great one.
Because then you can pick anything that you do and incorporate it into that.
I love that. That's fantastic. Any particular challenges that you're addressing right now that are coming up, either related to LGBTQ issues or George Floyd or any of the unrest that's happening, anything in particular that you're addressing right now?
Well, in the past, I have worked with feminism issues because I personally like to state, as I believe Emma Watson was the person that first brought this into light, that feminism is the belief that women are equal to men, not that they are better than men. And so working to get men to the same point as women are in some respects, as well as getting women to the same point that men are at. So I've advocated on, I've actually written legislative material and presented that at the State House through the Youth and Government program for fatherly rights. This past year, I worked with transgender youth rights. I did my first ever broadcast was only a week ago, and that was talking about Pridefall and staying safe through that issue and that concern.
Can you explain that issue a little bit?
Of course. Pridefall is a group that targets the LGBT community throughout the entirety of Pride Month through social media, as well as they make in-person threats through direct messages, harassment, claims, offensive slurs, graphic images. So there's a lot to be said there. And then they also threaten to dox people and out them, which is the collection of personal information and then releasing it to the general public. And so we did a seminar just talking about how to stay safe through all of that and avoid getting doxxed. And if you do choose to fight against that kind of thing, the fact that you do really need a plan, an outed plan, even if you think it'll go fine, just kind of being prepared for worst case scenario, just in case. So that was posted on June 1st. That's on the International Children's Month YouTube page. There was this Wednesday, I guess that's tomorrow, isn't it? No, it's not. It's Monday. This Wednesday, we are doing an Instagram live about racism equality, and that's more of an educational standpoint of just kind of talking about questions that people have of how to be an ally if you can't go to protests and stuff like that. There's a lot of conversation to be had there, and that is with Yvette. So there's just so much going on.
Yeah.
And the carousel never stops turning.
And do you like that? Do you like being really busy?
I personally do, as someone, this sounds strange, and I'm aware of that. The way that my generalized anxiety disorder works is that if I slow down, I can go downhill because I can start overthinking the fact that I'm not doing my part in order to make changes to the things that bother me. So I like to stay busy. I have a very organized planner. I am the kind of person that likes to have control over as much as possible. And so planning ahead and kind of planning these different events and talking to people for a purpose is how I kind of push myself outside of my comfort zones as far as where mental health puts me.
So would you like to talk at all about any of the work that you've submitted for the auction? Would you like to say anything?
Sure. So can I hold things up?
Yes, that would be
okay.
terrific.
So this one was actually my first ever digital art piece.
That's very cool.
And it was kind of just this idea of kind of figuring things out and trying to get a hold of what I kind of wanted to say with things and how to work digitally. But at the same time, it was also a discovery of kind of expressing expectations in different ways. I have, notebook doodles of, I always draw ballerina buns, and I'm not really sure why, but it's just something that I just tend to doodle a lot. And so that was just kind of something that spoke to me, and color schemes are really interesting to me. Yeah. This photo was taken at the Arcadia Mall in Cleveland, Ohio, and you don't think of a place that looks like that being almost really closed down. There's only 2 or 3 shops. It's connected to a wonderful restaurant, the Chocolate Bar. Um, and it's really, really gorgeous. I mean, it is so high-end and so detailed, and it looks so amazing, and yet there's nobody there to appreciate it.
Right.
And I find that to be very sad. But at the same time, it's a place to travel and it's a place to explore. I actually have a series planned for next year. I run the film club social media pages, and we are actually going to be doing a photo series called Explore Ohio. And so those kinds of images and those kinds of places that you just discover or happen upon, be it a mom and pop shop or an alley that has a really nice aesthetic to it. Just those kinds of places that you don't normally think of. You know, if you see Ohio on a television show, it usually has some fields and maybe some cows. But there really are beautiful, beautiful places. Like this is taken in Hocking Hills, where you can hike for days. And if you look up pictures on the internet, there are stunning, stunning waterfalls everywhere you go. And it's really amazing to see that kind of stuff. This past winter, I actually had the opportunity to leave the country for the first time. And this was taken in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And this was actually right after we got back. They had I believe it was a hurricane. And it destroyed a couple of the landmarks that we had actually gotten to see and taken pictures of just less than a week beforehand. And I have always loved the idea of traveling abroad, and that was my first time getting to do that. And San Juan, Puerto Rico is very, very beautiful, and you don't necessarily think of it as one of those places, you know, on your list. You know, you think Paris, you think London, you don't really think in that way, but the architectural style really spoke to me. And at the same time, you might not be able to see it right now, but there is no one within that picture. It was completely deserted. There is one car in the middle of the street, lights off. There was nothing happening. And it was just kind of one of those moments that you wonder what goes on when it's not tourist season, you know? That's one of my biggest pet peeves about traveling is I don't want to travel as a tourist. I want to see the culture. I want to see the actual, you know, the way that people think and the way that people live within that environment without knowing that there's somebody looking to buy a souvenir, you know?
Yeah. So one of the things I love about the pieces you've submitted is you submitted quite a few, and what's great is that it gives people really a lot of things to look at and think about. And that's our goal with the auction, is to have this diverse offering of art from artists who have been professionals for literally 60 years. One of our artists has been a professional artist for 60 years, to artists who are just sort of finding out who they are and finding their voice. And I love that you submitted pieces that can contribute to that diversity. So that's incredibly cool. So if you had some advice for somebody coming up, somebody younger than you are, who's just kind of starting to explore their creative side, what would you say?
I'd probably start out with saying, if you're afraid of change, you're in the wrong place.
I like that.
You cannot move forward and you cannot develop your skill if you're afraid of change, because even if it's, you know, adjusting the way that you draw your character's eyes, just a little thing like that, that's change. And you're going to have to be able to work through those kinds of things in order to find improvement. And at the same time, just your instincts. You can go back. You can go back. You can constantly evolve your style until you find exactly what it is that calls to you. Like I have this thing. The first thing that I ever loved that I drew, I did not think of myself as a visual artist or a photographer whatsoever until the first time that I drew a human heart. And now I just sketch that. That's part of my notebook sketches. I can just draw that from memory and muscle memory. And it's something that you can interpret in 1,000 different ways. And actually, there's an art gallery within my high school called the Meraki Gallery, and they had an entire display this past year of art that had human hearts in it.
Okay. Very interesting. So if you had to describe your, I guess your life philosophy, so your beliefs that are kind of core to who you are and sort of lead your decision making and help you figure out your path, what would those be? How would you describe that?
So whenever I have a dilemma and it doesn't directly lead me into panic, I kind of like to sleep on it a little bit. I meditate quite a bit. Yoga is a very fruitful hobby of mine. If there's a decision to be made, I try not to make it lightly. Some people might say, oh, why did it take you so long to bring this up? Why didn't we talk about this sooner? Because I didn't want, if I'm telling you something, it's going to be certain. I'm going to be assertive with my knowledge of what I am sharing with you, because I don't want to have to take something back that you have adjusted to. And that goes in all walks of life. Self-care is very important. I'm still working on it myself. But that is always something to keep in the back of your mind. If you're getting too stressed, take a bubble bath. If you have a meeting in 2 hours, that's in 2 hours. You have an hour and a half to take a bubble bath, and you can still put on clothes before your phone call.
Sounds like a very smart idea.
And don't be afraid to talk to other people about things. Don't be afraid to reach out to friends or family or whoever you really need to.
What would you say are some of your goals going forward? What year are you first? What year?
I'm going into my senior year.
Okay.
Which is, I don't know if I've said that out loud yet. Oh, I'm old now. I'm old now. I am looking to go into social media marketing, okay. So that I can basically do whatever I want with that. And just continuing to make change however I can, whenever I can, and really breathing through that. I was told growing up that the arts were not a realistic career choice, as parents who had both been a part of that and saw it not go so well. And so going to school for music was never really an option as far as what I thought I was capable of doing. And so anytime that I found a passion, I always had to think, well, is it realistic? Can I live off of this passion? And I lost a lot of things that I loved that way by thinking that everything that I did had to be realistic and meet parental expectations about what I can and cannot do in this world. And there are people every day creating jobs for themselves. I had the opportunity, I'm designing my own internship, and now I'm designing all of my own campaigns for International Children's Month. And so really I'm seeing now, which genuinely might be too late for some of those passions to manifest into something at this point, but that you can really make anything into what you do for the rest of your life.
I like that. It's exciting, and you still have so many opportunities to figure out exactly what that is. So you said you still write music. Do you sing?
I do.
Okay. And do you have a song that you would share with us?
Now?
Mm-hmm.
Right now?
Yep. And you can say no. It's okay to say no.
Sure.
I didn't know you were a singer. I would have warned you ahead of time that I might ask this. I don't usually spring things on people. I'm usually a pretty good warner.
I got that from your email with your list of discussion points.
Well, I want people to feel really comfortable and know that I'm not, I'm not trying to catch anybody off guard, or I want the podcast to be comfortable for everybody.
So these are my spunk journals since sixth
Okay.
grade.
That's awesome.
Pick a number 1 through 6.
4.
I don't even know what's in each one of these anymore. I don't have time to go get an instrument, so this should just kind of be.
What instruments do you have?
I have a variety of instruments. I don't necessarily play them all. I mostly play the auto harp, which is like playing a guitar without memorizing how to play chords. There's buttons that say the chord name. I'm sorry?
Is it, or how big is an auto harp? Do you have it in a fairly close proximity to where you are?
Kind of.
You can go get it. We'll just take a pause. I will stop this. And I'll start it again when you come back.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording and then.
Okay. Okay.
All right, we are back, and Asterin has some musical instruments for us and is going to share some music with us. So just tell us for very briefly what you're going to play.
I'm kind of just going to squeak something out on my saxophone really quick.
Sounds
just
perfect.
I'm curious. Like riding a bike. I don't think I've picked up my saxophone in 3 years.
I think that was pretty darn good.
Why, thank you. And
now, what else are you sharing with us?
So I have an old song that I wrote in 8th grade called Legacy, and it was kind of about the idea of leaving one place and moving to the next, and kind of what you leave behind someplace. Okay. And I think that it's fitting going into my senior year. You picked a good notebook. But this isn't the end, no, no. This is the final chapter, but it's not ever after, oh no. This is the end, no, this is a legacy, forever and always. This is our legacy. Friends have turned into family. We are all the same. Only time is to blame. Living day by day as if we'd never die. Well, our time has arrived. Who would have thought we'd all be here? Who would have thought the end was so near? It's time to let it go, let it be. Hope isn't lost, we've still got one more year. We aren't finished yet, we've still got our last dance. We might be apart, but only in distance and never in the heart. We may be leaving, but this isn't the end, oh no. This is the final chapter, but it's not ever after, oh no. This is the end, oh. This is our legacy, forever and always. This is our legacy.
Bravo.
And that is the auto harp.
That is a very cool instrument.
It gets picky sometimes.
So you said it's sort of like playing the guitar, but
But
without.
it knows the chords for you.
That
and you
is
can
quite nice.
play the same chord low or high. It's nice. It's a little less complicated for people who have memory issues.
So you wrote that song in 8th grade.
Yeah.
And bravo for you being so brave to, without practicing and without even me asking you ahead of time, to be willing to sing for us.
I don't think that I've looked at that since 8th grade.
Well, it was terrific. You did a great job.
Thank
you so much for sharing that with us. So the last thing I always like to ask people, which I think I warned you, I think I did warn you about this part.
We'll
the
find
last
out.
thing I always like to ask people is to tell us a story from their lives. And I always preface that by saying it doesn't have to be the story from your life. It doesn't have to be the defining moment. Just something when you look back over your life feels like you, feels like something that you experienced that brought you something. So I'm going to ask you that, but before I do, I just want to check and say, is there anything we haven't talked about that you would like to?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'll probably remember it in like 3 hours, right?
Well, you can absolutely anytime ask me and we'll have you back on to talk for 5 minutes about whatever it was you forgot. Okay. So now I just want to know, sort of in closing, if you can tell us a story. Tell us a story about your life.
Sure. So I did think this was the one thing that I did kind of plan ahead a little bit for. So the first musical that I was ever in, it was my 8th grade year, actually, which sounds like a late start, and it was. And it was Lion King Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an interest in skiing, and I had done that for several years. And the schedules conflicted, so I had to either do the musical or ski. And so I said at my audition, as somebody who'd never been casted before, that I wanted a titled role, or I was going to be doing ski club. And I got a call back, and they looked at me and they said, "Do you really want to do this? Do you really want to make that ultimatum?" And I ultimately did, and they gave me the smallest named role possible. I had one line, but it was an experience that was probably worth it. I remember the first dance rehearsal that we ever had. I mean, I was fine with my one line of acting. I was good with that. I was just fine with all of the singing stuff. But the first day of dance, my grandfather tells this story very often. He picked me up from school, and afterwards I said, "Grandpa, I'm going to get kicked out of the musical. I can't dance." And what I find funny now is that I've now danced since then for 4 years and have just kind of stuck with it. And it's now an outlet for me through everything that happens. And it's just something that, again, if you're afraid of change, the arts is not the place for you, because you might find a place that will nurture your passions and will help you grow as an artist. But if you're not willing to try that one terrifying new thing, I'm a klutz. I have quite literally gotten a concussion from walking into a brick wall. I have tripped over air and ended up needing an x-ray. So dance was not the place for me. I have my dad always tells me that I have no rhythm whatsoever. And so you have to be able to push yourself in those. It seems like a very minuscule thing now that, it was one day, and then I ended up, I've taught dance now. It's just one of those things that if I wouldn't have stuck with it, or I would have said, "Oh, they gave me the smallest role possible. Really? Okay, I guess I'm going skiing." Then I wouldn't be where I am now.
Right.
That was a huge turning point for me as far as where I am now with my arts and stress relief, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I love that, and it's a terrific place to end. We actually, the other day, I interviewed Nisha Worley, who's an artist who's 91 years old, and one of the things she said was she believes every creative should try everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she was particularly talking about visual arts, but I think her message was, you don't know how much you're going to love something until you try it, and you may find that something you thought you were going to love isn't your thing, but there may be something that when you started you thought, this isn't for me, and then suddenly you realize, actually, this is absolutely stupendously for me. So I love that, and I like that tie-in too. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. It has been such a pleasure. You are delightful, and we're so very grateful to have you with us for the auction, both as a creator and, well, actually both are creators. So as creating visual arts, but also creating the program for us, I can't wait to see it. I'm really excited. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It was a real pleasure. And to everyone else, thanks for listening, and we'll be back again.
If she's a mountain